Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. I
Okay.
think my internet cut out for a second.
Oh, that's what it was. I thought it was on my end. So, no, but I was saying my only grandson, he'll turn 6 on the 17th of this month, and it would be so good for him to have another sibling, just because I can see that individualism, the spoiled part, just the fact he hasn't had to share and things of that nature as much as I think he should have had. But that's probably just me being a grandma and an educator instead. So, but, oh.
But it hasn't really helped that much. She's been in preschool since she was 3.5.
Okay.
But apparently they don't share real well there either.
So, yes. That's maybe where it starts. Yeah, Jackson goes to preschool in a few days. So
the first question was the students, were the students engaged, and how do you know, or something like that? Because my answer was that they were engaged because they made eye contact throughout the presentation. They participated. Oh my goodness, my computer is not liking me having 2 windows open. They participated in discussion and provided meaningful collaboration during the activity. I could also bring up the actual lesson plan, which had the questions, but I think my computer would decide to
That's
crash.
All right. That's okay. Don't worry about it. So, what were a couple of things that you thought went well with your lesson?
I think they liked the activity where they got to get up and move, and afterward, after the activity, they kind of told us that they appreciated that part of it. Do you want more than one thing?
I think I had 2.
Okay. Whoa.
Because I can think of several things that went well, that the students were engaged.
I think that when we did the activity with Little Red Riding Hood, that went well. But I think that it went well for a different reason. I feel like it provided them an opportunity to voice their concern, and there was a lot of questioning at that point. Okay. And so it gave Rocky and I opportunity to walk around and talk to them about what questions they had, and that was kind of the clarifying moment, I think.
Good. So one thing that I really appreciate was the fact that when, I'd say at least for the last 3 semesters that we've worked with Webb's depth of knowledge levels, I've had some cards to use that I told you about, but I really appreciated the fact that from the get-go, both Rocky and you said, well, we'd like them to get to level 3 and level 4. And I hadn't even thought about that, all right, because they're pretty much, they're good activities, but they're just skills and concepts. They're just really applying what they're learning rather than what you made them do, where they had to think about Red Riding Hood and then Little Red Riding Hood, and then also later on where they had to choose the subject and then come up with the different questioning levels. So I thought that was really good.
I think it challenged them, and I think a lot of them were uncomfortable with it. But as far as the exit questions that I got back and looked at, they did really well. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the more they practice, the more confident they'll be. But I think they grasped it more than they even realized.
Right. So I've asked Brady and Gretchen tomorrow with their talking about differentiation with gifted students, and they were bringing up Bloom's taxonomy. So I said, please remember to tie in depth of knowledge levels too, because I think that that's where the we're headed, and that's, you know, everybody knows more about Bloom's, but I want them to continue working on their ideas of those 4 different levels, and how can we get our students from a level 2 where they're just doing still skills and concepts to where they have to actually strategically think and such. Yeah. So, but so,
and I think part of it too is understanding the students' apprehension, because they're so used to levels 1 and 2 that even in my classroom, when I try to put in 3 and 4, they shut down completely. And so we have to kind of weave it into the lesson without them realizing it for it to be effective, I think.
Right. So, and that was one of the things I told Rocky, which I thought it was, I don't know, not hypocritical, but an oxymoron, because here we're talking about depth of knowledge and wanting to get our students to levels 3 and 4. And then I switch up to, okay, let's do PPAT task 2 with the co-teaching. And so what are we doing for our assessment, our pre and post tests? We're using level 1 multiple choice, you know, but hopefully they get the idea behind it, you know, what the purpose is, and they can see that it is to show growth. So,
yeah.
But, no, you did a nice job. What, if you had to do anything differently, what would you do?
I think look at the different content area examples that we provided them, because I kind of just skimmed them and passed them out. And then when at the very end, when I had a question about art, this student was trying to write his level 3 and 4 questions, and I have no experience in his subject. And so I felt really bad that I was like barely able to help him get through it. But if I had read those packets and prepared myself better for the other content areas, I would have been more effective.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it would, just throwing something out there, if they had to read the information beforehand, would that have been helpful? Or do you think that they read it? Because you guys did do a great job of providing them with some excellent resources.
I think it would have helped them, especially at the very end, but I think part of what we were concerned about is that they would learn too much from the information, and then they would be bored the whole time we were talking. So I think maybe a good balance there would be to maybe focus more on the basics ahead of time, making them aware of what the levels are and what it means, instead of talking about the history of it and what do all the levels mean, and then devoting class time to putting it into practice and providing them with more than one opportunity to write those questions. That probably would have been a better way to structure it.
Mm-hmm. But I thought the history, though, was good on the part what Rocky talked about, Bloom's, and how it changed from that the focus all of a sudden became on the verb, and that was the deciding factor, what verb that you were using. And I'm trying to think, did you have them do that where they had the same verb and had to write different levels?
Kind of. We gave them an example of a level 1, 2, and 3, all using the same verb describe. And then we asked them to throw out ideas of what might be a level 4 with that same verb. And I think we got one example thrown out. I think it was Rob who had the example, which isn't surprising. And then I gave my example as well. but we didn't really have them do much with it.
Okay, so that was just something, again, not that you're ever going to teach it, but for me, even like to suggest like pulling out a verb, and then having to come up with like the 3 different levels.
Yeah.
But just so they could see. That's why I know when I first started doing my Common Core training and going over, Webb's depth of knowledge levels, but that was what some of the teachers would bring up. But the verb, this is this verb, so it's got to be at this Bloom's level. And so I learned a lot I learned more, which is really interesting from Nebraska. It's not like I remember Piaget and Maslow's and Pavlov and all of that, but I do not remember Bloom's taxonomy at all compared to the focus that you see on it here in South Dakota, because everything is with Bloom's. So that's why I think maybe for me it was easier just to hook onto Webb's because, I hadn't had that background that everyone else has. So
you aren't quite as resistant, I guess.
Right. Because even in our training, we put up there, South Dakota has been a Bloom state, so, and it's just everything that I've seen, but I'm glad to see that finally that there is more of a focus on that depth of knowledge. And when I went to Minneapolis in November, there were several presentations from other states on depth of knowledge. So it's not just us. So that makes it kind of nice too. So let's see. Did you notice anything? Any mannerisms or things that you were not aware of before you watched the video?
I think it was mostly my stuttering, because I've had a stuttering problem since I was a little kid, and becoming a teacher, even, in the past 4 years that I've been doing it every single day, I still am amazed at how much I do misspeak and stutter a little bit. And I think that in the video, I was hoping that it wouldn't be as apparent as it was.
I never noticed it. I maybe noticed a few ums, but that's just thinking of, what you're thinking to say next. And to me, that wasn't as prevalent, or it wasn't to the point where people were counting how many times is that word going to be said. So I didn't even know. So again, that's one of those things. Probably, are you self-conscious about it, or?
Yes, but I also try to slow how I speak to kind of get around it, as well as I probably say more often, because I'm trying to form the word in my mouth so I don't stutter.
Okay, interesting. So no, you're doing fine with that. So very
well, good.
Yes, I always think of Mel Tillis. Does it help? Like, are there times when, like, Mel Tillis stutters, but then when he sings, he doesn't? Have you ever noticed anything like that?
I don't think that I've sung enough recently to notice it, but it's very possible. I mean, I sung in high school. I guess I never really noticed. I'm not sure.
So, that's something that I just have always found interesting. So, but just, you're doing a great job with it. So,
I think the other thing that I noticed was that I wasn't completely aware of the technology. And I kept forgetting to walk over to the students and have them have their voice recorded. And so there was a lot of conversation that we couldn't hear in the video because I was completely oblivious to what I was doing.
But
I also wrote in my reflection that I paused a lot, and I think that was probably because I was trying to make sure I didn't stutter and trying to form my thought before I said it so I could focus on the words.
That's awesome, though. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's times I wish that I would pause more. And being mindful of what you want to say, that's a good thing, rather than just opening it and letting the stuff just spew out. So, I was going to say one thing too. I think that you helped me in the fact that when you started moving, taking the swivel around, it kind of made me think, why am I not doing that? And so that's why I hopefully have been a little bit better about directing people to go stand by the person that's talking and moving the thing. But just from you moving the swivel and showing the posters, the satellite students were very appreciative of that. So it wasn't just the stand and deliver, the fact that they could see what the classroom was like and what the tables were doing. So,
well, good.
Yes. So, and it's hopefully just gotten better since you being the trailblazer and getting it going. So, all right. Well, thank you, Julia. I don't have any other questions. Essentially, it was the reason why I like to do this is for the fact that my co-teaching assignment is based on a principal's observation, where you have that pre-meeting and then you teach the lesson and then you do the reflection and then, you meet with him. And I really thought that Mr. Morford, which I'm going to have him come even earlier in the semester, the fact that he had said if they don't have their reflections written out, then they have to reschedule. So that really brought home that it's not just us that requires it, but that's how effective teachers work. It's not just, up in my head, I'm going to do this, but they actually have to write it out. So you've got that documentation too. So,
yeah.
But you're doing a great job, and I appreciate all the input that you provide in the class during discussion. So,
thank you.
And I will see you tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Julia.